creating this Falling Sands game. So yesterday we had a bit of a rough go, got stuck on some basic arithmetic for far too long. Today we're gonna try and move at a bit of a better pace. Let me just send this message to Discord. Today we're gonna try and move at a bit of a better pace, but we'll review where we got to in just a minute. How's everyone doing? Just mute myself there. How's everyone doing? Byrne, I see you in the chat. How are you? A couple bits of feedback from yesterday's stream. One was that the chat was blocking the code, so I've moved that. But you guys give me a shout if it's blocking the code, and I'll try and make sure that that's not happening. I've also added an / charity command. So we are creating a game as part of a charity stream, right? So I figured it's only right to see if we can maybe potentially raise a little bit of money. So I'm going to be donating again every time I make a mistake, £2. But if you guys hit the / charity command, that'll take you to a Tiltify page, which directly donates to the Glasgow Children's Hospital through the Games for the Wanes initiative. Yeah, other than that, I think we're about to get started. Morning, Neil. How's it going? Ilox, hey, enjoy your business lunch. Sounds very professional. Thanks for stopping by. While we wait for people to show up, I will give another quick recap of what we're working on here, or where we left off yesterday. So we're working on this embroidery style game where you're going to create these environments through kind of a falling sands simulation. So where we got to yesterday is we can drop sand onto the screen and it'll kind of pile up, but there's a few issues here. So one is that the sand goes off the screen because we actually have a square grid and we're rendering it within a circle, so we need to fix that. The other is that it always piles to the left first, so we need to fix that so it's a bit more randomized. The other is we need to be able to actually, change the materials that we're working with. So I'll just change the color here. So if we're working with water, it should behave more like water, all that kind of stuff. So there's a few things to work on there. And yeah, you'll see the counter in the top left. Yep. We're gonna, every time I make a mistake, whether that's something won't compile or something crashes or anything like that, it'll be £2 to the Games for the Wanes charity that I'll be donating. So we left off at £24 yesterday, and we'll see where we end up today. I think it's gonna be a bit of a shorter stream than yesterday. Hopefully we kind of blast through some of the stuff, but yeah, we'll see how we get on. Cool. All right, shall we get into it? Actually, I'll give a quick recap on the Falling Sands algorithm, which is the main thing that we're working on here, just before we get going. Let's just get GIMP open. All right. So, Falling Sands. The idea is that we have a grid of particles. Let's get a pencil out. Cool. So we have a grid of particles, right? Something like that. And each particle is assigned a type. So it might be sand, it might be water, it might be empty. And depending on the type, every frame we're going to update the simulation and move it around in some way or another. So if it's sand, the rule is that we check if there's a cell below that's empty. Let me actually make this a bit smaller. We check if there's a cell below that's empty, and if so, we move to it. Otherwise, we check down and right. Otherwise, we check down and left. For water, it's very, very similar, but we're going to check down. We're going to check down and right, down and left, and then we're also going to check left and right. And basically, each material type will have its own behavior. So that's what we're going to work on today. Right now, we only really have sand. Water is obviously not behaving like water. We also have no way to change the material. I'm just changing the color here. So there's a few things to work on there. Hey Kev, how's it going, man? How you doing? Congrats on the paper clay release. Looks like that's been really, really well received. So let's get into it. So where we left off was this really messy little bit of code here, so I want to clean that up first. And we're going to introduce a new update movement function. And that is going to take a particle and a position. And we'll move all this in there. We're also going to introduce a new enum movement style. Let's say public enum movement style. So it can move down. It can move down diagonal. It can move horizontal. And what we can do is we can use a bitwise operator to kind of combine these enums so that we can have multiple different movement styles for a single particle. Doing great, got back from a small road trip. Awesome, I saw the picture, looked really, really nice. How's the sand going? It's going. We really, really struggled yesterday with some really basic arithmetic and it was very embarrassing. So hopefully people aren't too put off and they rejoin today. But we've got some basic sand movement. We're gonna add water just now and hopefully get some kind of cool behaviors out of that. How'd the road trip go? Road trip was fun. Went with my mom and my younger brother in my small camper van. That sounds awesome. That sounds so nice. I was up in Loch Lomond this weekend for a wedding, and it was really nice. A nice little road trip out of the city, but no camper van, unfortunately. We stayed in a little. It was like a little barn that's been reconverted. It was quite nice. Cool. So let's close all these. Right, so soil can move down and down diagonal, water can move down, down diagonal, and horizontal. So now let's actually implement that. So, so this is going to be checked down. Cool, so if our movement style flag contains the down enum. I think that's right. I always forget with these bitwise operators, but I think that's right. So if it contains the down enum, we'll check down, and if so, we'll return. If it contains the down diagonal, sounds pretty nice if I'm honest. Yeah, it was really nice. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful weekend. Really nice wedding too. Okay, so we can check down diagonal, and then we'll also do horizontal for our water. And if any of this is true, or if we move in any direction, we need to exit out. Cool, so that should be much cleaner and it's kind of extensible. We can add a lot more behaviors with that as we get going. Do you still do any streaming, Kevin? Kev? Do you prefer Kevin or Kevin? Kevin or Kev? Do you still do any streaming? I don't actually need that. All right. So let's just check that that still works for sand. I haven't got back into it, but I want to. Maybe when I get going on other projects. The current stuff isn't suited for streams, I think. Either work for me. Yeah, I was talking about this the other day, but I used to really not enjoy streaming. I did it, but like it kind of gave me a lot of anxiety and I didn't really have a good setup for it. Lately I realized I have a good setup for it now, but I didn't really have anything to stream because I can't really show my next game yet. So we're doing this summer game jam, which will be good fun. But when that's over, I'm having a lot of fun with this. And when it's over, I kind of want to keep streaming. So I got to figure out what I'm going to be doing, what I'm going to be able to show at that time, because I don't think I'll be able to show my next game just yet. Okay, so sand should still work. Cool, it does. Now we need a way to actually change what we're dropping. So right now, let's just do the little temporary thing here. So we'll use this. This input particle. And I think we need a quick function to convert a particle type to a color. So if it's empty, I think that's actually an exception because you can't have color for an empty. We'll turn this, we'll turn, let's do this. Turn this dot soil color. And then we'll return float3, color.r, color.g, color.b. Morning, Big Banks. Good morning, Suarve. How are you doing? Thanks for stopping by. Good to see you. All right. Let's see. Okay, yeah, right. So we want this to be particle type, particle type to color, and we can use particle dot particle type. Cool. So we'll obviously need a way to do this within the game itself, but right now it should start as sand, and if I switch that to water, we now get water. However, it's not behaving like water. It should be smoothing out to the sides. So why is that not working? Down diagonal, horizontal, horizontal. Yep. Ah, of course. Count that as an error. Let's give that another go. Okay, sand piles up and water still does not smooth out. Another error. Off to a great start. Let's give that one more shot. Sand piles up. Water spreads out. Sort of. It's so it's moving to the left. Ah, I know why. Because the way we're iterating through this, I think we're hitting the same particles multiple times in a row. So if we have a particle in one position and then we moved it into the next cell, and then the next cell is the next one in our job, it's going to move it again and again and again, and we're just going to basically move it all the way to the left, I think. We're kind of getting something. Let's give this a nicer soil texture. Soil, water. Yeah, it always wants to move to the left. So I think what we need in our particle is a flag to make sure that we don't update the same particle multiple times in the same frame. Public int last updated frame. And when we run the job, simulation frame. So if we get to a particle whose last updated frame is equal to this dot simulation frame, we'll return, because we don't want to update the same particle multiple times in a single run. And then at the end, we want to take the particle, last updated frame equals time to, index equals particle. And I think that should do it. Nope. What in the world? We'll count that as an error. Okay. That's the reason about this. So the last updated frame is equal to the current frame. We do nothing. Otherwise, we overwrite. Hang on. We can't do that because we've moved the particle. So we're writing to frames that are no longer contain our particle. Or writing to cells that no longer contain our particle. So I think what we want to do is we want to return an updated index. So we know where it's moved to. It's kind of... Actually, you know what? We'll do this. Okay, so now we should know where the particle moved to. We'll need to refetch it. Set its last updated frame, write it back in. I think we'll need to clean this up to remove all the writes for performance, but for now, let's just make sure this works. Good morning, Demian. How are you? Okay, soil still works. And water seems to be acting much more reasonable. It still has a preference to move to the left, and that's just because we're not introducing any randomization and it always checks left first. So we'll fix that in a minute. But yeah, water seems to be behaving a bit more reasonable. Neat. Cool. Okay. So let's add that randomization in. Let's do. Unity job random. I think the math package has a random number generator. Cool. So I think for the seed, we'll use the current cell index because that's going to be unique per cell. And maybe just to make sure it doesn't stay consistent on every frame, we'll use the simulation frame plus the cell index. Unit.mathematics.random, next float. Cool. Okay. Random seed. Hey, Scuffles, how are you? What's the solve math thingy? Oh no, what's the game jam you're doing? So this is the Games for the Waynes jam. So Games for the Waynes is a campaign that raises money for the Glasgow Children's Hospital, and they're running a game jam this year. It started back in June. I just started July 1st. It's running all the way to the end of August. So it runs the whole summer. It's just a small jam, and the theme is what matters to me. We are creating a kind of embroidery. I'll show you guys a picture of the inspiration. We are creating something inspired by this. This is Taylor Brooker on Twitter. She creates these amazing landscape embroideries. And so what I want to do is basically using a falling sand simulation, be able to create something that looks kind of like this, and then be able to actually go into that environment to walk around in full 3D. So you'll be able to kind of go back and forth between this like high level embroidery falling sand view and then an actual 3D environment that you can walk around and explore. And so the idea is that we will have kind of raw materials like soil and water and stuff like that. And then depending on how they, depending on how you use them, they'll kind of combine to create grass. And if you have a lot of grass, then trees will spawn, so on and so forth. So that's the idea. But it's all to raise money for the Games for the Waynes campaign, or well, for the Glasgow Children's Hospital. Did we solve the math thingy yesterday? We did solve the math thingy yesterday. Finally, only took 3 hours, but we finally solved it. And the solution was just a very simple -1 on the width and the height when we're denormalizing the UV. I'm gonna play a raft while listening to this. Cool, enjoy. Will the game be playable anywhere? Yeah, we'll definitely have this on itch. And then once we have something, that somewhat works, I'll get a build out to you guys. We can start playtesting it and get some feedback and see if we can kind of incorporate some ideas and make it better. Sounds like a great jam. Yeah, it's a great jam, great cause, really cool organization. And the Glasgow Children's Hospital, obviously, they have a lot of children in residence. But they do something really cool where they provide them with like gaming equipment to help them pass the time. So they have like, games donated to them, consoles, all that kind of stuff, controllers and whatnot. But they actually like employ a gamer in residence who, spends time with the kids, plays with them so they can play like, Mario Kart or whatever. And, have a friend to kind of help pass the time with as they're undergoing treatment. So it's a really cool cause. And they've been doing this for a few years. They did a Steam event a couple years ago that we were involved with, and just a really cool organization, cool people. So this year they're doing the game jam, and figured why not? It'd be fun. Very cool game idea too. I like arty ideas like that. Yeah, I think it could be interesting. After I finished Feral North, I went through like a prototyping phase, and this is one of the ideas I was really excited about. But I could never quite make the input work, and so I think this experiment with the falling sand is kind of a different way to kind of go about that, and hopefully that makes it a bit more interesting. Yeah, Games for the Waynes. Wayne is Scots for like wee one, like child. So yeah, Games for the Waynes. I'll pop this in the chat. Okay, so we can generate a random seed with index. So we'll return this simulation frame plus index. Like Weens. I mean, I'm not. Yeah, I wouldn't claim to be an expert, but my understanding is it's Wayne's. Okie doke. So what we want to do, so right now we're always checking if left is available before right. What we want to do is we want to randomize that, and we'll use the current frame plus the index of the cell that we're working on as our seed. Generate a random number between 0 and 1. If it's greater than 0.5, we'll check right first. If it's less than 0.5, we'll check left first, and that should give us a bit of randomization. So not always leaning to the left. So let's give that a go. So Unity Mathematics Random. Is this a struct? Yes. Rand, we can pass the seed in. This will be our index, which we can get helpers, grid space to particle index. That should do it. Turns an int. Yep. Ah, this one's a uint. Okay, that's fine. We can cast that. We know this is always going to be positive, so that's safe. Gotta go, but good luck with it. Cool. Thanks for stopping by, Scuffles. Appreciate it. Cool. Wow, I just made a random door in the middle of my raft. How unrealistic, but it's very satisfying. Nice. Checked left first equals rnd.get next. Get float. Next float. Next float. Oh, we could just do bool. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna do this. If bool left available, bool right available. So if they're both available, we will move to whichever we're doing first. So check left first. Otherwise, if only one of them is available, we'll just move to that one. And then we've got to do the same thing down here, but we're going to create another function. So what we'll do is we will do this plus the base offset. And then this is just check left, check right. Hi, Tony. Tony loves music. How's it going? How you doing? Okay, so what we can do here is we can do, this is wrong. -1, 1. Hey, Seth, how you doing? Don't need any of that. So what we're gonna do, okay, so for down diagonal, so we're gonna return this update left right movement. Let's actually rename that to horizontal. Update horizontal movement, grid pause. The offset, or the base offset, is going to be -1 because we're going down and then diagonal. Movement style and out updated index. And actually this needs to return a bool so that we exit if this goes through. Okay, so what's the error here? Oh yeah, that's fine. So if we move, return true. Otherwise, return false. Okay. And then we do the same thing here. But the offset is 0 because we're just checking on the same cell. We're not moving down. So this is down diagonal. This is horizontal. This return is redundant, but I'm just going to keep it. And we have our down. Cool. So that should add the randomization, and we shouldn't see everything kind of leaning to the left. Can we clean this up a little bit though? So if left available, or actually no, that's fine. Leave it be. Should I make a plaque on the side of my raft saying Kyle Banks rules? I mean, I wouldn't object to it, but you definitely don't have to. Okay, so that actually looks like it's kind of moving much more evenly. It's not leaning to the left. And this should fill up. And then we'll start spilling over. And then once it's all evened out, yeah, that looks more even. Still kind of feels like it has a little bit of a left lean. But I don't know if I'm just seeing things. Returns a uniformly random bool value. Yeah, cool. This doesn't need to get past. Is there any reason why this would go... This would lean to the left? So if they're both available, then we check... I can actually move this in here. So if they're both available, we generate a random value and then decide whether to check left or right first, or whether to give priority to left or right. So let's rename that. Prioritize left. Otherwise, so if only one of the two is available, then we just go to whichever one's available. So if left or right is available, we can do left available, check left, otherwise check right. I don't see any reason why this should generate a lean to the left, so maybe I'm just seeing things. But it does feel like it's not behaving exactly the way we want. Okay, I think the next thing we need to do is, for those who missed the stream yesterday, so we actually have a square grid, but we're rendering it inside this circle. And so the problem with that is there's all these cells out here, which are being simulated, but we don't actually see them. So what we want to do is kind of like essentially ignore these cells. I think that's the easiest way to go about it. So what I think we can do is we can just treat them as like stone or something, something that doesn't move, but things kind of collide into it. So we wouldn't see the sand take so long to fill up here. It should immediately hit that and start rolling down. So we'll treat that as sand, or as rock, sorry. So let's add that as a particle type. I think we're going to need a better way to deal with colors, but for now, that's fine. And then we will, when we initialize the array, we'll basically generate anything that's not in that initial, or that inner circle will just be set to rock. And then I think we can get a little bit clever and actually exclude that from the update job, so we're not wasting cycles on that. But let's first just implement rock. So case rock break. And this has no movement. So for now, we do nothing. So we should see if we place rocks that they just don't move and other things bump into it. Sorry if I already covered this, but is the plan to allow sand to fall through the water eventually? So this is what's kind of weird about this, and I don't know if this is exactly going to be intuitive. But we're treating this like we're creating a bird's eye view, but we're dropping things as if there's gravity. So it's kind of, there's like a little bit of a weird dissonance there. So water wouldn't go through, sand wouldn't go through water. It would just be beside water, even though it's kind of seems like it's falling with gravity. So I don't know. It's going to be kind of weird. We might have to redesign that at some point, but that's how I'm thinking anyway. So if we look at like one of these examples that has water, so it looks something like this. So you would have water, you would drop water from the top and it would kind of pool at the bottom. And then if you draw sand, it would basically just create a border around the water. And then I think what we do is for any soil that's, 1 unit away from water, it turns to grass, so that, we'll kind of have like these interactions between the particles. And that's really what it's about, as opposed to like them moving and displacing each other. I don't know if that makes sense. It kind of makes sense in my head, but I think it's going to be kind of weird gameplay wise. So we're going to prototype it, see how it goes, and then we might need to change it after. It'd be cool to kind of work out the water displacement and all that. But given how much we struggled with the math of like simple grid logic yesterday, that might be a bit beyond the scope. But we'll see. Okay, so we should have, soil still works, and then if we add rock, they should just basically stay put. Maybe rock isn't the right. That's kind of cool already, actually. It kind of acts as like a little barrier. Does that make sense? The soil falls, but rock doesn't. Rock just like stays still. I feel like we really are kind of like messing around with these weird gravity rules, considering we have this like 2D perspective or like a vertical gravity type simulation, but not everything is necessarily working with it. I don't know. Like I said, we might have to come back to this later and change it up, but it's kind of neat, actually. So if we take all these hidden cells and we convert them to rock, that should do the trick. So on start, let's initialize our particles. So if I just If I just initialize all of them as rock for the moment, so we should just see a full grid of rock. Yeah. And then we can just basically draw into it. That's kind of neat. Okay, but now we need to calculate which ones are in the visible surface area and which ones are not. So it should be, because we have a normalized UV, it should essentially be anything that is the normalized distance from the center is greater than 0.5, I think. So if we grab the float to UV equals particle index to grid space, that's I, this dot width, this dot height, and that is not UV, that is grid space. And then we can go grid space to UV space. And then if the distance, I guess it's actually just the length. If the length of the UV is greater than 0.5, well, if it's less than 0.5, we just skip it. So it's greater than 0.5. It is more than half the size of the grid away from center. No, actually it's not, because this is not normalized to center. Put the sign up on the raft. Cool. Thanks. Now everyone can know. So we need to center this UV. Or we just cheat. We grab the UV of center. UV center. Okay, so this is if distance UV center less than 5. Not sure if this is going to work, but I think it will. So we should really see nothing. We see a little bit, and that's because of the rounding, because we're always treating the bottom left of the cell as the origin. So let's just make sure this actually works first, though, and it does. So it does create a barrier, and we can see that in effect on the right side, where it falls off the rock. Now we need to deal with centering this, though. So we need the UV of the center point of the cell. I put the image in my post, tagged you, so you can see if you like. Very cool. That's how you get bonus points on the stream. That's funny. Thanks, Fern. Okay, so we need to know the width of a cell, the normalized width of a cell, essentially. So float to width and height. Normalized size is one over width, one over height. times 0.5. Okay, so UV center. I think that should work. Put next to the random door. I'm not sure what I'm doing with the raft anymore, but oh well. So with raft, are you? I guess the point is to build a raft. Is that the idea? It seems intuitive that that would be what you do. Okay, so this has not worked. That is an error. So what have we done wrong here? So each cell makes up this percentage of the width of the entire grid, assuming we have 400. The width is 400. So it's not actually sorry. So it's not percentage. Build a raft and survive. The survive bit is the tricky part. But what is your raft? Is it does your raft give you like resources? Does it give you shelter? All of the above? And are you just surviving from like sharks, or are there like other things attacking you? Okay, let's want to go back to this for a second. Let's reason about this. Ah, that might have been the issue. Okay, we're still seeing it on the left side. I kind of want to render this on a plane so we can see the whole thing. So if I change this to plane, so we are filling it in, but we're getting a border on the left and not the right, and that's because our UV calculation is always the bottom left of the cell. We want it to be the center of the cell. However, we are taking the normalized size, half of that, and adding it to the UV center. So why is that not working? Mainly the shark. I called him Chomper since all he ever does is chomp the raft up and attack you. Oh, so he actually destroys the raft and stuff too. That's cool. You have to fish for food and have a water purifier for water. Is there like an end game, or like you just survive as long as possible? It's gonna be our debug plane. And we will take that. We will just kind of put it off to the side. 0.02, 0.02, 0.02. So this little guy lets us see the entire grid in one convenient little spot. The raft can be a house, but you need a lot of materials for that. The majority of materials are found in the sea with your hook and from the islands that you can find. But is there like a conclusion? Like, can you win the game? Or is it just you survive as long as possible? Are you set on the number of pixels? No, not at all. So we can tune that. So right now we're doing 50 by 50, but if we did like 400 by 400, you know, now they're super tiny, but it still works. So maybe something in the middle, 200 by 200. Cool. And so one thing we can do is we can now actually filter out all of these rock pixels from the simulation. They're never going to update. They're just kind of like a hidden little barrier. So we can remove all those from the simulation. There's a story. If you get the receiver, you can use it to find radio signals and go to the few people out there. But the game doesn't ever really end. There's no limit. Okay, cool. So it's just never ending. I'm definitely the kind of person who like I need a conclusion. I find never ending games just aren't really my thing. I think that's because I like story games. And if there's never ending, typically there's not really a story that goes with it. But that's cool. I can definitely see the appeal. Very impressive. I like it a lot. Cool. Thanks, Neil. So I think in order to create like interesting shapes, we look back at Taylor's art here. I think we'll need a material that's going to act as like a border of some sort. It's kind of like our rock, where we can like carve out shapes, so we can get like kind of specific with the way that we want to design the world. Because right now, like if I wanted to create this, where it's kind of like offset to the right, it would be kind of like a mad can we do that? Actually, let's see. So if I add some soil here, and then I fill it with water, and then before it overflows, I add more soil. So I can kind of actually create that shape. It's just a little bit tricky. So yeah, I'm not sure. We might need like some tools to help shape the world, but it might be possible just with this simulation as it is. We can add little like islands like she has in hers. So let's do some soil. Add some water on top of that. And I think we'll add a radius to the spawning, so we can spawn more or less at a given time. Because right now we're just doing one pixel per frame, which is quite slow. But yeah, it's kind of neat. It's kind of fun to play around with already. Ironically, well, not ironically, but increasing the resolution has kind of masked our issue because these pixels are so small, but we do still definitely have an issue. So let's go down to a lower resolution again so we can see it. And the issue is our border is creeping in on the left of the screen. So do I need to actually do minus? UV center is... Somehow that has not really changed anything. Distance UV, grid space to UV. So if this is 0, 0, then we will get the UV space will be, sorry, if the index, particle index to grid space, so if this is 0, 0, bottom left, we will get, the UV space will also be 0, 0, and this becomes a negative number, which is not what we want. This is definitely meant to be plus. Let's just try getting rid of that for a sec. But yeah, what do you guys think? Would you want a tool to kind of create kind of borders, or do you want the kind of challenge of like living within the simulation and trying to kind of make it work. Okay, so this is a bit better. This is a bit better. We're still a little bit offset to the left, though. Oh, there we go. I think we got it. So now we are living within our little circular simulation. And I think one thing we need to do... Actually, no, because we can't click out here anyway, so that's fine. We are getting these little tiny dots here, though, which I don't love. Neat. There is a story. If you get the receiver, you can use it to find radio signals and go to the few people out there, but the game doesn't ever really end. There's no limit to expanding react. I think I already read that, but yeah, cool. So does the story have an end? Okay, so right now what I want to do is add a little optimization to this, where we stop simulating, because we're still simulating all these kind of solid rock frames solid rock cells every frame. So we can remove those, I think, pretty easily. Just check my to-do list here. Yeah, let's do that next. Okay. So right now we're running on every particle. What we're going to do is we're going to add yet another native array. And this will be an array of integers, which are valid particle indices. And we'll run on just those. So our update job is going to need those. That can be read-only. And we will run. So basically, we're changing our job to run through a list of integers, and those integers are all of the valid cells, which are basically these black ones, the ones that aren't initialized as rock. So up here, let's create a list, int valid indices. And when we ignore one of these, because it's a valid cell, we'll add that. We'll add that index, and then we'll initialize this native array with the valid indices. I've not done the story yet, so I'm not entirely sure. I only got the wrap to the Steam sale this year. Oh, cool. I've only had it a week. It's so good, though. Nice. Is there an overload to initialize this with an existing array? I think there is. Yes, there is. So what we can just do is pass that in, and we might convert that to an array. It's doing a little bit of garbage, but we're in start. That's fine. And then in our update job, we no longer grab that. So the index is actually this valid indices index. So now we will be going from, instead of running on every single array, we're only running the valid ones. Let's see how much that saves us. So we were originally running this.particles.count, and we are now running .validParticles.count. And let's have a look. That's an error. So we went from 40,000 to 31,000, so almost 25% less. So that's good. It's well worth it. Read-write buffers are restricted to only read and write. Restricted to only read and write the element at the job index. Can use double buffering. That's fine. Okay, we know what we're doing, so we can ignore this. There is something we can decorate this with. This. So we can tell Unity that we are smart enough not to mess with the concurrent access on this. Gotta head off. I'll hopefully pop back on later. Making great progress. Thanks, Neil. Cool. I hope to see you again, but if not, have a good one. Rats. He just took a whole corner of my raft. All right. Nice. I feel like 200 by 200 will let us create some really intricate environments, but it's kind of hard to see as well. Neat. Okay, so we're running on way less particles, 25% less particles. And we have a nice border around our circle. We have water, we have soil. What else do I want to get done today? I want this to actually look like thread. So at one point we did have like a nice looking canvas, and now we just have these basic colors. So I think that's the next thing to look at. Hey, Fragment. Nice, didn't catch the stream yesterday, but looks like progress. Yes, we are making progress. I think yesterday was probably the stream to miss. There was we had a bit of a rough go on some really basic math, but yeah, getting there, making some progress. So we can do our little simulation. We have soil, we have water, and we're getting one step closer to this. So the next thing to do will be when water and soil touch to start converting things into grass. And then when we have a lot of grass, we can start spawning trees and yada, yada, yada. But just getting these basic movements in. Cool. Okay, so we had this before. We had a nice little fabric. Something that looked like, something you would actually embroider. And now we don't. We just have this. So I want to basically combine the two. So there's two ways we could go about this. One would be we continue on with this shader and commit to doing everything in HLSL, including, actually, let's just do this real quick. Just to see if this looks all right. And then we'll have to do all the lighting and all that kind of stuff in HLSL, which is fine, but given the time constraints we have, it's not ideal. But yeah, this doesn't look ideal. So we'd have quite a bit of work there. I think what we might do, against my better judgment, is convert this into a shader graph so we don't have to mess with all that. We get all that default lighting and all the passes, like the depth passes and all that kind of stuff for free. And then we can just focus on like getting the visuals down. Do Control P to see all arguments to a function, so you don't have to jump to the source file and search for the constructors. Let's give that a go. So what do you mean? Control P to see all arguments to a function. So if I'm doing new native array, int whatever. Ah, nice. Cool. Thanks, Maurice. That's helpful. Appreciate that. It looks like a really fun game when it is finished. Do you know how much graphics it will need? I'm trying to figure out if the HP will be able to run it. HP stands for Henry the Potato. That's a really good question. So given this is a game jam, I'm not going to go through creating all these different settings levels and stuff like that. We'll try to create something that's like relatively optimized that'll work on any computer. But it's definitely going to scale with the canvas size. So right now we're doing 100 by 100. If we change that to like 10 by 10, then I think a potato could very reasonably run it. If we change it to 1,000 by 1,000, I think we start to get into trouble. So we'll do some playtesting. I'll send a build out. Maybe at the end of this week, I'll send a build out and you guys can check it out and see. Maybe we'll just see how 100 by 100 runs on everyone's computer, and we get a sense, kind of gut check where we're at. For, you know, obviously for like a quote unquote real game, I'd go a lot further with this and create all the different settings, levels, and all that kind of stuff. But for a game jam, I think time is of the essence. So we're gonna kind of rush through this and just get something that kind of runs generally across the board and is detailed enough that we can all kind of create cool environments out of it. So far, I haven't seen this drop below 60, so I'm locking it at 60 right now, so we don't have to deal with frame dependencies inside the job for the moment. And I haven't seen it dip below, but let's see. If I go like 1,000 by 1,000, I'm sure it will. No, actually, it's still running pretty smooth. But we still are missing a lot of gameplay and stuff, so yeah, we'll just have to kind of keep an eye on it. But yeah, I think that's maybe a good goal for the Saturday stream, to get a build out so you guys can check it out over the weekend, and then yeah, it won't be very fun, but you can at least like click around and draw a little bit. So what did I say? Okay, yeah, so we're gonna convert this to shader graph so we don't have to deal with writing all the passes and all that, and we get some lighting for free. So let's do that real quick. Rendering shaders. Let's create shader graph, URP, lit shader graph. Long sand graph. And we'll still use HLSL for the particle logic. Just one moment, guys. I got someone at my door. I'll be right back. Okay, I am back. Right. Where were we? Yes. Okay, so we're gonna convert this to a shader graph, but we're gonna keep the kind of core particle logic in HLSL. So let's get into that. So first thing we need is our texture. This is the main text. We want another texture for the normal text. Let's get that going. Okay. So if I swap this out, let's grab our fabric albedo. And our fabric normal. And this should just look like the basic fabric. Nice. Okay, so now we can implement our what I wanted. So we're going to multiply this by the result of custom function. What do you call that? Custom function. This will have an output of RGBA, or factor 4, float 4, whatever you want to call it. This will be color. And actually, you know what? It'll also take the color as input. And we don't need to multiply. And we'll use a file. Let's create a new HLSL file. Rendering shaders. HLSL. The HP only has low Intel graphics. The tough gaming computer will be able to run it fine, but it'd be good to play on Henry the Potato. Yeah, it definitely would. That'll be the goal. We'll try and get that. I can't make any promises for Game Jam, but we'll try. This game is going to be most likely CPU bound, meaning the graphics card's not quite as important as the CPU on it. But yeah, we'll see how we can get it working. Apply falling sand. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so void apply falling sand. How does this work again? Is it like you have to do this? Float, float 4, color, out, float 4, output. I think that's how it works. So let's just try returning output equals float 4 1001. So we should just see red. It has 8 RAM, like 8 gigs or just 8? Okay, so we have a normal map, and if we take color and multiply it by that, we should see basically just a red fabric. Nice. Okay, so now we can put our falling sand simulation on top of this and multiply it by the fabric color, and that's good to go. Okay, so let's do that. Where are we? Split right. So we're still going to need these as input. And we're still going to need this. We're going to take all these. And we're going to need the UV as input as well. So we could grab the particle index from the UV, get the particle, multiply the input color by the particle.color. And that should do it. Vector 2, UV. Six, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in. Glad you made it. We are not getting what I was expecting. So what if we just do this? Just woke up. So it would be like 7 a.m.-ish for you. Is that right? Apply falling sand float. We are, let's disable this normal map for a moment. $7.15, but yep. Nice. So we are just seeing a lovely gray. Let's figure out what we're missing here. So if I just make this red, oh, do I see red? I do. Okay. So we can render colors just fine, but we're not getting these inputs for some reason. Is that the issue? Let's do this again and debug this. Window analysis, frame debugger. Let's have a look at what we're passing in. Render, opaque. Okay, here's our falling sand graph. So I'm not seeing our width or our height. Does shader graph allow us to pass in arbitrary inputs like this? What if I, actually we can delete this guy. What if I just get lazy and do something like this? Rather than passing it to the material, if we do shader.set global, set global buffer, will it allow this? Oh yes, of course, yes, the UV. Thank you. Thank you, Buffu. We forgot to connect that. That is an error. Correct. Yes, so we never passed the UV, so let's grab that. UV 0, that's perfect. And we could hook that normal back up. Normal. All right. Compile. There we go. So we are now just getting nothing. It's always the little things. It really is. Let's put this back to material. Ooh, I'm approaching an abandoned raft. Spooky. Can you like board other rafts? I'm very invested in this raft game. Nice. Okay. So now we are running the simulation on a fabric. We don't want this. We have the empty color as black because we never actually initialize it. It should be white, or should be using this value. So let's fix that. But yeah, it kind of looks at least like we're running on thread. We'll definitely do some more to kind of improve the look of this later, but it's kind of neat. But let's get the thread back to a proper color again. So rather than black, probably just have to be set to global and shader graph, I believe, to use global, by the way. But because you might be right, but because we're using, like, we're defining our own variables that are just like uniforms, like global uniforms, I feel like it should work. Clearly I'm wrong because it's not, but I feel like it should. Forgot that. Let's bring that back. This shouldn't really change anything because the texture is basically white anyways, but neat. Neat. Okay, so we're not using global anyways because that was kind of just a little gross little laziness to check if it was going to work. What we do want though is we need to initialize when we have an empty. When we have an empty, it should be white, not black. or we use an alpha channel to lerp between lerp like the strength of the multiplication. Trying to think of what would be more annoying to deal with all the time, and I think that's setting an empty color. So we'll get rid of this, and we will actually make color a float 4. So if it's empty, actually we don't need that. So if we have a color, it's 1. If we have a color, it's 1. By default, it'll be 0, so that solves our problem there. And we just need to pass this in as a float 4. Cool, cool, cool. And then in our shader, we make that a float 4. And what we're going to do is this, and we'll lerp from color to color times particle.color using particle color.a. So if we have an alpha channel, we know there's a valid particle there, and we'll use that. If we don't have a value in the alpha, there is no valid particle there, and we'll just use the default color. That should do it. And let's give that a go. You steal what the previous haven't left behind, but you've got to be fast since the raft starts to sink as soon as you step onto it. So are these other players, or are these like NPC rafts? Raft's a pretty fun game, very chill most of the time, better with friends. Yeah, I bet. It sounds like the kind of game that would be like hilarious to play with friends. Neat. Okay. I think we're going to want to reduce the normal strength a little bit, but this is working. Very cool. NPCs. So we were talking about this yesterday. It sounds like it's more of a co-op game, but can you play competitive against people? Or like if you just want to be a jerk, can you like backstab your friends or stuff like that? Or is it like purely competitive? Neat. Okay, that's working. NPC rafts. I've never played with friends before because I don't have any to play with. Oh, I'm sorry. Able to select I'm just looking at my to-do list again. So I think the next thing to do would be... So there's a couple things we could do. So one would be to start having actual thread spools here. So we can like click on a thread spool to select the input type. So like clicking on blue would input water, clicking on brown would input soil, that kind of thing. I think that's probably the most important thing to do next. We could continue on the simulation where water and soil neighboring creates grass and stuff like that. Or this is something that we talked about a little bit yesterday, was to use, rather than like everything just kind of falling or having like simple movement logic, would be to actually have a velocity vector. So things kind of move a little bit more naturally. I think that's probably the lowest priority thing on my list, but I do think it'd be really cool to do. You work together on the raft, I believe, in multi. You can absolutely backstab your friends. Ah, nice. But I don't think there's a competitive mode in raft. Fair enough. It's always funny though when you can kind of like, you know, screw each other over a little bit. If you want sand to fall through a water particles in the move routine, you could just swap to particles, would work with empty particles as well. So we don't want it to fall. So I think this is the thing that's going to be the most confusing about this game. We don't want the particles to displace one another because we're actually, it's a very unintuitive the way that we're doing this, and I'm very open to ideas. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to create like a bird's eye view. However, we have falling particles, which kind of gives the perspective of like more of a, how would you call that? Like, you know, traditional kind of third person view, but we're actually creating something in a bird's eye view. So the water, we don't want the water and the sand to kind of move through each other. We want them to neighbor each other so that we can create like little locks and glens and stuff like that. Yeah, I think that's kind of like side scroller currently. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's going to be really confusing about this, and I'm not really sure how we're going to kind of explain that to the player. So yeah, open to suggestions, but I think for now that's going to be kind of confusing. I think there's a leaderboard, but it's not like an in-your-face thing, and Friendly Fire has a toggle. Kind of wondering why you would want to backstab your friends. I mean, I don't want to, but it's just like, you know, you have some funny moments when that happens. Or maybe like you accidentally, friendly fire and stuff like that. Implementing velocity can be tricky. Yeah, for sure. Because you probably don't want particles to phase through one another. Yeah, it's velocities, it's kind of, I think it's a nice to have, but it's definitely low priority. I don't think we need it necessarily for the game to work, but it would be cool to have. So I want to keep that on the to-do list, but it's probably not the top priority. I think for today, we'll wrap it up with having you be able to select a thread spool and change your input through that. Don't worry about why, lol. Yeah. Sometimes it's just fun to kind of like, push your friend off the boat, I think I'd start have a preset landscape to visually indicate perspective. Yeah, I think we could do that totally with like a tutorial where maybe like there's a landscape that's like 90% done. And yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think we have a preset landscape that's like 90% done. The player just kind of like finishes it and then they get a blank canvas to work with. That maybe that's good. Good suggestion, Bufu. I think that'll work. You can accidentally leave your friend on a sinking raft while you slowly swim away. That sounds fun. That sounds fun. Okay, so what we're going to do for now, let's hide our little debug plane. We don't need that anymore. Who needs debugging? We've solved this. Let's hide that, and then let's create a prefab out of the spool. We still need to return to the visuals of this. It looks terrible. But for now, let's create a prefab out of this. We'll call it spool. This will be, I don't know what you call that, cardboard. And this will be fabric. Let's create a prefab out of that. Nice. And then we can have a few of these. We'll do this like, we'll actually spawn these later. We just have to figure out like, we're going to have levels or how's that going to work? For now, we'll just have 3 of them. So what we need to do is we need to set the fabric color to match the color of the material. And when you click on one, it swaps your material. So you can place that material onto the canvas. Maybe water can move in every direction for a couple of frames, not like sand that can fall every frame. So water particles can create patches like lakes. So I think if we do eventually do the velocity thing, we could do it where like you can kind of throw the water. So like it includes your mouse momentum on spawn. So then you can kind of throw it and it'll all kind of like slosh up on the wall, and then you can put in sand to kind of like barricade it in, stuff like that. I think that could be fun. I think Fern had the right idea. If we get a build out to you guys this week, which is just kind of like this basic thing, we can kind of see how extensible it is and how much you can already make with this very, very basic implementation and see where the gaps are. And then if people are already able to make really cool stuff, we can kind of just like enhance it. If people are kind of struggling to make anything interesting, then we'll add more things like velocity and stuff like that to kind of spice it up. But we're still really early in this jam. We're on day 3 out of 60, so lots of time to basically add scope creep. To be fair, on WolfQuest multiplayer, I did run away and just leave my friend Rory with the pups during an attack just to see what happened. Sometimes you gotta do it, man. Sometimes your friends will just slow you down. You gotta throw them to the wolves. Sounds great. Cool. What if we could rotate the frame? Ooh. 6, that is interesting. What if you're dropping sand and then you can rotate it and then the gravity changes? That could be interesting. If the gravity shifts based on the rotation of the canvas. 6, that might be the way to go. That sounds interesting. Day 3 out of 60. Yeah, so so Kev, here's the plan. I haven't streamed in 3 years, so naturally I'm gonna stream every day. Just get right back into it, throw myself right back into it. So we're not gonna stream every day of the 60. We're gonna stream 5 days a week, so Tuesdays to Saturdays. I get 2 days off. for 60 days, so till the end of August. The jam ends August 31st, so I think we can make something pretty cool in that time. But yeah, we're only on day 3 so far. If there's one way to get back into streaming, then it's that. Yeah. Just publicly commit to doing it every single day until you're finally comfortable with it. But I'm only going to work on this game on stream. So I have another project that I'm working on, my like next quote unquote real game. So this is only being done on stream. We're going to build this all together. And I think at the end we'll have, 40 or so VODs making a game from like new project all the way to release. I think that'd be really cool. Then you have lakes on the east and west sides. Yeah. I think this is a really cool idea, Six. I think we'll definitely try that. So Dev plays Raft on stream when? Maybe. The goal of this is really to get back into streaming. Like I kind of had this like itch to start streaming because I realized I kind of have like the right setup for it now. So I don't particularly care what we're streaming. Game dev's obviously something I'm very passionate about and I enjoy doing, but making this game is really just a vehicle to get back into streaming. So if people are up for like, people, I know a lot of you guys are game devs. So if you guys want me to like give feedback on your games and stuff, we could do streams like that, play games, whatever people are into. I just want to kind of get back into the swing of it. But I don't own Raft, so maybe if enough people are into that, we'll check it out, but not today anyway. But yeah, Six, I think this is the idea. I think that's the way to go. We'll look into being able to rotate this and have the gravity kind of shift with it, and that could be kind of fun. Right, okay, let's do these spools real quick. Okay, so a spool is going to have a particle type. And it is going to have a renderer. I will gift it to you. I don't do that because I don't know for sure if I will play. I'm like, I don't get a lot of time to play games anyway, so I would hate for you to do that and then I don't end up playing it. But it's very generous. If we decide to do a stream, I'll grab it. I don't think it's that expensive. Surely it's not that expensive. Yeah, 10 quid. That's fine. I'll grab it if people are into that. Do we have, so how many Raft players do we have? We have Fern, we have 6. Do we have, was it Earl? You play as well? Maybe we get a game going on the Discord. Because I don't think I can stream like just playing a game on my YouTube channel. I think the algorithm will hate me for that. But we could definitely do something in Discord. So I'm missing my library here. I want to grab that. KB Core refs. This is something I made a while ago that just makes reference handling in Unity so much nicer. So rather than doing like get component and all that, you can just tag it with where you want it to be. And that's, I miss it when I don't have it. So I'm going to grab that real quick. But I wrote all this code, so it's not cheating. Download zip. I don't have Discord. There is a public multi option. I could definitely stream it on Twitch. So we could play together on Discord and I could stream that on Twitch. I just don't want to stream that on YouTube because I don't think the YouTube algorithm would like that. But I'm not particularly as fussy about Twitch. And I think Twitch is fine with that kind of stuff. Okay, downloads, scene ref, unpack this. Fun fact, Raft has no player limit. It'll go as long as the host PC can. We've had 18 before and ran out of players before PC gave out. Cool. So one person hosts it, everyone connects to that. And yeah, cool. So there's no limit. That's sweet. That's good to know. Because we used to play like Among Us and stuff in the server, but there was a limit and we would hit it and it was kind of, you always feel bad. So that's cool. You mean you don't like to have a 1 kilometer line just to get a richer body? No, I don't. I'm so sick of typing like get component, get component, get component. I think this is a much nicer way to work. Plugins, let's pop that in. Okay, so now we can just do zeros field, self. Actually, it'll be a child. Flag.editable. Private renderer. And then we just need to do this on validate, this dot validate refs. At least if you make the game, I'm not playing with people in America, so I won't have 100 ms like I usually do. Get component in children while I parent. LOL. Yeah, indeed. You ran out of potatoes. It's not what you want. Okay, so we have a particle type. We can get a color from a particle type. I think we need to clean that up a little bit because that's kind of a bit of a mess at the moment. What is the better way to do this? I want like a central place, preferably accessible. Actually, no, it definitely has to be accessible from the job, so it has to be burst compatible. So maybe we create a little subclass here, a little struct. Color mapper. This is kind of redundant, but serializable. So we'll have a color mapper. We can move this out. What's like a good value for soil here? 0.4, 0.2, 0.05. 0.4, 0.2, 0.05. Actually, you know what? Let's not do this. So we're gonna have to remember to keep this up to date, which is annoying, but for now, this is the best idea I have. When you're working with burst and stuff like that, sometimes it's a little finicky getting things to be compatible. This could be float 3, R, G, B. We'll definitely return to this. Never you fret, guys. Okay, so we can now access this from other places. And we can move this into that struct. Okay, so we can access that there. This can be this dot color mapper dot particle type to color. Let's actually rename that get color. Okay, so let me private. Let us get back to the spool. Okay, so we have a particle type, we have a renderer. So on start, we will grab a reference to the material. I'm not going to bother with GPU instancing because in my experience, the SRP patcher is actually faster in URP. At least it was in 2023. So I'm not going to bother with that. So we're going to grab the material from this guy. This will create a copy of it, which we want. On destroy, we will clean that up. And then all we're going to do is this material dot set color. And we need a reference to our color mapper. So this is falling sands. Dot color mapper dot get color. And that will be this dot particle type. We have to convert that to a color from a float 4 to a color. New color dot x, color dot y, color dot z, color dot w. Cool. Okay. And is this the right? This is probably not the right. This is going to be the default lit shader, and I think that's called. Is it called color? Let's find out. It is called base color. So let's go back to our spool. Let's do that. Base color. Wish me luck today. Oh, I just fell off my raft. Too bad. Hello, Rels. Wish me luck today. I'm going to present my game project for a program course. Very cool. Good luck. I'm having trouble with lightings and enemy navigation in Unity. And it's due today. Is that right? Pushing this all last minute. Well, wishing you luck. Can you tell us at all about the game, or do you need to focus in and lock in and finish it up? You gotta lock in. It's fair enough. Well, good luck. And congrats, Fern, killing the shark. All right. Okay, so we're grabbing the material. Actually, this should be this. Grabbing the material, setting its color. We clean up so there's no memory leak. So what we should see is this should get updated. We should have one spool per material, and then we'll set that to white as default. So we have this spool. We'll add that to the prefab. This spool will be soil. You can be water. You can be rock. So we should see these colors get updated when we run this. Let's have a look. Very cool. Okay, nice. So we have soil, water, and rock. So now we need a way to select an active spool. It's a horror maze game where the walls and paths to escape is changing every while. Neat. That sounds cool. While also an enemy is chasing you. Always terrifying. There's nothing scarier. Honestly, I think there's nothing scarier than the feeling of being chased. Like I've been replaying the Resident Evil remakes, and in RE2, and RE3, when the Nemesis and whatever his name is following you, it's just the scariest thing. At least for me. There's nothing scarier than being chased. I like how there's several storylines in this stream. Yeah, I'm trying to keep on top of it all, but yeah, we got a few different things going on here. No, I'm not busy right now. I'm just having a break for a bit. Ah, cool. Custom pathing. Yeah, so Rails, how are you handling the pathing? Are you using like A-star, or are you generating a nav mesh? How are you handling that? It costs £10 and 4 pence. That 0.04, that 0.04, you know, you don't want, that could make a difference. Gotta go have lunch. Cool, have a good lunch. Okay, so we need to be able to select these. So we're just gonna do a very basic click check. So let's get rid of that namespace. So let's do something here. So in our Falling Sands, I think we did something kind of quick and dirty yesterday where we're doing all the mouse input here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create an input layer, input manager. And we're gonna move this out. So an update. Oh, so we're not a model behavior. Okay. So we no longer need that. And what we're going to do is we're going to run the raycast and we're going to see what we hit. And just based on that, we'll behave accordingly. So rather than using the canvas collider like this, let's get rid of that. And let's move this guy onto the canvas. I used to have an array to store 3 different set of walls, so it loop for every phase to change in minutes. So it makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. So it's not like completely randomized, completely generated, but it's like shifting between different presets. I like doing voxels, a pathing for 3 dimensions. Yeah, pathfinding stuff can be quite fun. Very basic to a short time. I feel ya. Yeah, we're doing the same thing here. Something is always better than nothing, you know? Though the way of stuff's changing runtime, it can update. Oh, that way of, yeah. Just glad that Unreal has built a navigation system that works fine for like 95% of cases, even with dynamic environment. Don't like making pathfinding on my own. Unity does as well. It does a decent job, but it's super finicky. So I think one of the most popular assets on the Unity asset store is the A-star pathfinding algorithm, because it just does a much better job. I haven't actually used it myself. With Feral North, I got away with just the default, but there wasn't a lot of like changing environments, just a few things with like gates opening and closing and stuff like that. So Unity was fine for that, but it is very finicky. So I'm jealous that that Unreal has a better built-in solution. My last thing to do is just having lighting at the moment, but the moment I added them, I started having weird glitches. Sorry to hear that. Can always be a little finicky. Never worked with lightings before, unfortunately. Do you mean like light maps, or what do you mean? So we're gonna move this guy, copy component, delete you, put you right on the canvas, paste. So if we run this raycast, we can check if the object that we hit has the Falling Sands simulation, and if so, we can run it. So let's do that. We no longer need this. Let's do that. So if the button is pressed, okay, so if it's not pressed, we don't need to do anything. We can just return. Okay, and then we will run our raycast to the mouse position. If not, physics.raycast. Yep. So if not, again, we'll exit. And so here we have hit something. So what we need to do is we need to check what we've hit. So if hit dot, one of these is much more efficient than the other. I can never remember which. I think it's collider. Yep. If hit dot collider dot get component Falling Sands. Let's do try get component. Oh, Falling Sands. Then what we'll do all this. So Falling Sand dot on, let's just do on click. And we will pass in the hit.collider.textchord. No, hit.textchord. And then we'll create this function. So this is the UV of where we clicked, and then everything from here on, everything from here on is same as it was. And let's do this. Public particle type, input particle. Actually, let's make this private. Private particle type, input particle. So this is what we're currently drawing with. And yeah, all that should stay the same. And then when we click on one of the spools, so else if hit.collider.tryGetComponent out spool, then we'll do spool.onClick. And when this gets clicked, this falling sands set active input particle, this dot particle type, and generate that. And this dot input particle equals particle type. Okay, this should work. Famous last words. Light baking. Yeah, light baking is very finicky, especially if you haven't really used it before. Just never bake lighting. Yeah, that's one solution. Unreal has a lot of useful built-in systems. Wouldn't advise switching to it though. Yeah, I have no desire, but I am jealous of some of the stuff that it has for sure. Scrolling up to I literally have no idea what baking even does. So baking, essentially, it pre-computes a whole bunch of the very complex lighting calculations. So like indirect lighting, light bouncing, stuff like that. It pre-calculates all that for all your static geometry, and it puts it into textures. And then those textures can be sampled at runtime. And Unity kind of like handles all this for you. I'm assuming you're using Unity. But yeah, it only works for stuff that doesn't move. It doesn't work for things that are moving. Lighting was for static objects anyways, perfect. So it's for like lamps or torches within the maze. Yep, cool. I also just tried adding just like component for every torch placed on maze and still glitching even weirder. Well, so what do you mean by glitching? It could be that, yeah, hard to say without seeing what the glitch is. Yeah, it could be any number of things. One thing I would suggest looking at if you're using Unity is to look at I'm making a lot of assumptions that you're using Unity and you're using URP. So basically like nav AI bake. Yeah, exactly. One thing to look at is your URP settings. Again, assuming you're using URP. Where do I have those? Settings. This guy would be to check the additional lights per object limit. So by default, that's like, I think it's usually 4. You might be exceeding that. And when you exceed that, then lights will kind of like start culling and you'll see like lights kind of bouncing and stuff. So you might want to increase that and see if that helps. Let's go. So this guy needs a collider. So what we can do, we can just use a box collider for that, I think. Let's go box collider. My suggestion, if you want some GI for better visuals, use Unity SSGI URP on GitHub. I'm actually using that in my my main project at the moment. It is great. One thing I will say, it does definitely have an overhead. So you'll need to downscale. It has settings to tune it. It has settings to tune it, but you will need to kind of downscale it and you know, depending on the target platform, it might be a bit heavy for you. But it does look nice, and it is a big improvement. Don't want that. I want these to be zeroed out. 0, 0, 0, 0. Let's hop into Blender and fix that up real quick. Let's go. Okay, here we are. Okay, so this guy I think we no longer need. Get rid of that. This guy could be parented there. Keep transform. So we're going to apply rotation, R minus 90x. apply rotation R90X. Apply rotation R minus 90X. Apply rotation R90X. Let's give that a go. Why are you down there? Ah, I know why. Apply a location. Object, set origin. Origin to a geometry. Anyone remember the how you copy a location from one object to another? Add copy also to selected. Yep. Rotation R minus 90X. Rotation R90X. Good enough. Come back and fix that later when we redo these models. Okay, so my plan is I'm going to try focusing on the functionality of the mechanics to run smoothly, and then before the presentation's a project, I'll show my mentor the glitch, because my last thing I wanted to add is like making the maze all dark and the only source of lighting is from torches and player flashlight. Yeah, that's always kind of annoying. Definitely avoid that if you can. Okay, so we'll apply all of these. Very cool. Let's get you back down onto the table. Close enough. We'll come back to all these visuals sooner than later. Okay, so we should be able to click on one of these. It has a collider. We'll find the spool. We'll set the color. So if I click sand, nothing happens. If I click water, nothing happens. Let's debug. Oh, I don't have the input manager. Cool. Nice. We can't really see the rocks, so we need to change the color of that to something a little bit more reasonable. Still not super visible, but very neat. Cool, guys. What else? Let's check the to-do list. So able to select a thread pool to work with. Combining water with soil creates grass. I think we'll save that for tomorrow. Velocity or Six's idea of rotating. I think we'll save that for tomorrow. Yeah, there's a lot of visual stuff. I think we'll call it there for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. The goal is by the end of this week, so Saturday, we'll get a build out, posted on Discord, and we can start messing around with this and seeing how well it runs on everyone's computer, see if it's possible to create some stuff. So that'll be the kind of goal for tomorrow and Saturday's streams, is to kind of get this to, you know, not necessarily be a game yet, but just something, you know, worth checking out. So we have a few things left to do there, but yeah, I think we'll call it there for today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Don't forget to check out the Games for the Waynes charity if you have the means to support. I'm sure they would really appreciate that. I will pop a link in the chat there. Can I do that on YouTube? Let's find out. I cannot. I will do it manually. Anyways, so yeah, my goal, this is just my personal goal, is to see if we can raise 100 pounds by the end of the 60 days. I think that'd be really awesome. So if you guys have the means, then definitely check it out. None of that goes to me, of course. It's going straight to the charity, and helping the Waynes. Cool. Thanks for hanging out, Kev. Bufu, looking forward to seeing more. Yeah, I'm really excited to see where this goes. I think we've got like a cool little start here, but there's a long way to go. Rouse, thanks for hanging out. Good luck with your project. I will see you guys tomorrow. Tschüss.